Welcome back, Camden Catholic. Or should I say, again, good morning, Camden Catholic. So this is about the point that I can guarantee you that we're going to get to in class. A couple of y'all might have got a slide past this. Some of y'all might be like a little bit before it. But you know what? It's okay. Because we're not spending too much time on the Byzantine in the first place, right? Because here's the thing. Remember, biggest thing to take away when we're talking about the Byzantine Empire is just the fact simply that was the entire world in the Dark Ages from the years about 500 to 1453 AD? Exactly right, Ron. Not really, right? So there actually were a lot of European powers or former European powers that were still growing and still active and still kind of holding on to the intelligence of Rome, right? So when most people refer to the Middle Ages as the Dark Ages, they're talking about a time when they turned away from the old ideas of Rome and turned more towards things what one would consider by Romans to be barbaric, things that included, little infrastructure beyond communities, lords of just different areas owning their own small plot, no centralized government, things like that, right? But the big thing is that the Byzantinians were still around, right? So, and of course, remember that's the what side of the Roman Empire again? Very nice job, oi wee. That's the eastern side of the Roman Empire, right? So, their capital, Constantinople. Protected on all sides by water, very defensible. They're also going to throw a large wall up on the front side of the entire city to actually protect it so that it's very, very defensible for quite some time. For over 1,000 years, this place was a very, very strong safehold for most of all of the intelligence of Europe. So, as you can see right here, here is the Strait of St. George, and that is Constantinople right there, and that is the wall that protects the city, right? So, getting into it, though, Constantinople is in modern-day Turkey, all right? So, as you can see right about there. So, modern-day Turkey in the sense of the Balkan, that gray area between Europe and Asia due to the fact that Europe's really not even a continent, right? But we're not going to get into that right now. So, Christianity is their official religion following the reign of Constantine, right? So, strong military, builds very large walls, but the biggest thing about the Byzantine Empire in Constantinople was that it was the cultural diffusion hub of the world, right? So, you got to understand, it's a trade hub, right? It's right between China and Europe. Oh, God, it's actually in the middle route of this thing. Does anybody know the name of the several thousand-mile-long road that actually stretches all the way from China, all the way to Europe and Constantinople, and all the way past it, bringing goods from all over the world? Does anybody? Anybody at all? Wow, really? No? No? Wait. I think I hear somebody in the back. Who is that? Is that... Yeah, Ethan Whitman. That's exactly right. It's called the Silk Road, right? The Silk Road was a trade route that actually traveled all the way from China all the way through Europe. Now, keep in mind, though, if you're looking at geography, if this is Europe, here's North Africa, here's where Asia begins, China's all the way down, down here in this general region, well, even further, actually, way over here. But to get to Europe with these goods, or even to get to North Africa, you've got to pass through Constantinople. And what happens when you trade and come into contact with each other? Cultural diffusion! I heard all of you say it, right? Very good job. But let's keep going. Let's fast forward a couple hundred years, right? Fast forward, not even a couple hundred years, actually. Let's fast forward a couple hundred years. Fast forward to right after the Roman Empire fell. Let's fast forward to just the absolute disarray that the world is going through. These people called the Ostrogoths were actually the ones that came in and just sacked Rome and destroyed it and really kind of just pwned them bad, right? So, but then out of the ashes rises up a new leader. His name is not Justin, but Justinian, right? So, Justinian is going to bring the Byzantine to its absolute peak, right? So, the big thing about Justinian is he was just a phenomenal leader. He's going to rule from 526 AD to 565 AD, right? So remember, if this is a very, very relative close amount of time, if he picks up rule following the fall of Rome in about 476, right, to the Ostrogoths, and he picks up in about 526, that's less than 100 years. Well, that's a massively narrow amount of time, all things considered, from the fall of the strongest empire the world had ever seen to the growth of now this eastern halves, right? So by 565 AD, he has extended a lot of things. He's done a lot of things by the end of his reign, right? He has rebuilt Constantinople in grand style, right? Not that it was ever destroyed, but just the fact that he actually, he really made it his own, okay? He actually had this beautiful, beautiful church called the Hagia Sophia actually built, which is still to this day actually one of the kind of holy sites for a lot of Christians, even though ironically enough, now it's a mosque. So anyway, but he's going to rebuild Constantinople in grand style. And I mean grand style. He's also going to invent this thing called Justinian Code. He's going to take the 12 tables, Roman law, right? And he's going to twist it a little bit, and he's going to create a civil law code called Justinian's Code. The biggest thing about civil law, all right, very important, his law was meant to apply to everyone, all right? Civil law is a law that applies to everyone no matter what class. Justinian's Code was a groundbreaking thing because he kind of related a lot of the problems that Rome had to the divisions within their society, right? The fact that the patricians had more rights than the plebes did. So he creates this civil code of law, right? So known as Justinian's Code. So, but keep going though. That's what Justinian's Code looks like. A very big boy book. But it is filled with different situations and different addendums and different laws that actually apply to all people. And right here down in the bottom is Justinian himself. Now, something you'll notice about his artwork right here. So big art form, very large art form that the Byzantines would use right here. It's called mosaic style art, right? So mosaic style art is where they take all these individual little pieces of glass or tile and they actually lay them together. It's very two-dimensional, but it's very beautiful and very colorful. When we get into the Renaissance, we'll talk briefly about how, the Byzantinians were one of the only ones that actually held on to some of the art and some of the intelligence that actually came out of Rome. The Romans were actually very good at creating these mosaic style pieces of art. However, the Byzantinians are going to take it one step forward and kind of hold on to all that intelligence, right? So, continuing forward, though, Justinian was an autocrat. What an autocrat is, he believes he's a sole ruler with complete authority, right? Almost like an absolute government. But continuing forward, though, this right here is the money that he had coined under his reign. But here's the question. Don't write that down. It's not that important. He had one person that he actually believed was like his best advisor, the person that he was the closest to, and her name is Theodora, his wife, right? So his queen that he met because she was a dancer, all right? So he goes to this establishment one night, and she's dancing, and she just captivated him, right? And she absolutely annoyed the living daylights out of everyone in the Byzantine Empire, right? I got to look up some more fun facts. I know there's a lot of cool stuff about her, but I just can't remember it off the top of my head right now. But Theodora is going to rule alongside Justinian, and she also was a ruthless politician. Absolutely ruthless politician. Some say that she actually had more people put to death than Justinian ever did, right? So, but that was his main advisor and co-ruler, and she got after it, right? Here she is, pictured right here in front of Justinian as well. And also there was an extremely strong military under Justinian, equipped with this new weapon that no one had ever seen before, called Greek fire, right? So Greek fire, very cool. Some of the only evidence we have of it actually being used is from historical records from the Byzantine Empire, right? And that's actually it right there up in the top left-hand corner. See them blasting this fire into the oncoming face of the ship right here? That's a bad Monday right there. Oh, God, jumping into Monday like that would be terrible. So what Greek fire actually is, it's a petroleum-based flammable liquid, right? Almost like a napalm in a sense, okay? So what ends up happening, though, if any of y'all ever cooked before, what do you not mix with hot oil? You never mix water with hot oil, right? So water actually does not put Greek fire out. And it's a very cool thing where they actually keep the liquid inside of a container, and then they have a spout, what we believe anyway. We believe this is how they launched it at people. They had a spout on it, and they would actually pump it out and build pressure and then release the valve, and it would go forward, this petroleum would, and then there would be a small, lit flame on the end of it. So it's basically like a flamethrower, that Kleinflammenwerfer, which is how you say flamethrower in German. Now, also, though, as you can tell right here, the Byzantinians were under frequent invasion as well. They were constantly being attacked. That's why that Greek fire was so important, okay? And we'll get into, kind of how that kind of keeps going here in a second. But this right here, that beautiful church, that's the Hagia Sophia. That's the thing I was talking about, right? Beautiful. It's a mosque now because you can see the minarets next to it, which is the call to prayer by the Muslim community. But it's a beautiful, beautiful building. It's on my list. Now, write this down really, really quickly, too. By the end of Justinian, so right here in orange, you can actually see when Justinian started his rule. And right here in yellow is actually where you can see where he actually claimed by the end of his death, right? So the Byzantinians, write this down, the Byzantinians made an effort to reclaim the land that they lost in Rome, right? And they got most of it. They got Italy, a little bit of southern Spain. They actually stripped some of they got back some of the original Carthaginian lands and things like that. But they made an effort to grow and actually try and they got so close to actually getting all that intelligence and that glory that was the former Rome back again. But unfortunately, you just can't do it all, you know what I mean? And the Ottoman Turks are going to show up later, and it's a big problem. But the main thing you're talking about when you're talking about the Middle Ages, you're talking about basically anybody here, or over top of all that stuff when we talk about the Middle Ages, right? So now the Byzantine, though, begins to shrink after Justinian. Even though his rule was phenomenal, he did have a lot of issues. Like, for example, in 500 AD, there was this thing called the Plague of Justinian, right? So, I'm not even going to write that. Just write the Plague of Justinian. That's a big example of, why they began to shrink, right? But the Plague of Justinian, again, we believe was a resurgence of Yersinia pestis, the bacteria that we believe causes the Black Death. Now, the Byzantines also going to be constantly attacked, like I just said, by Slavs, Persians, Vikings, Huns, Turks, everybody. The Huns were the big one. Under Attila, Attila the Killer actually threatened them all the time. He's like, look, I'll invade you and destroy you now. Just pay me and I won't. He actually held their city for ransom. It was crazy. So they were constantly being attacked, right? So a lot of people looked at them as the defending force against the foreign invaders, and this began to actually start a lot of these issues leading into the Crusades, right? So now we got to talk really quick about the Byzantine Church, right? So the Byzantine Church at the time, that right there, that's the this guy is the Pope. Somebody's getting feisty. I feel Dom DeStefano right now. He's sitting in his chair. He's freaking out, right? As the Pope of the Eastern Orthodox Church, right? So, because here's the thing, Roman Catholicism, the way that it exists now, actually is a byproduct of this thing called the Great Schism, right? Oh, it's one of my favorite words, schism, all right? So, the Great Schism. Now, the big thing about the Great Schism, getting into it, I'm going to show you a word, you're going to need to write it down. But tell me that he doesn't look like he's wearing one of those hats, the ones that have wolf or an animal on it, and some of the kids wear them and they stick their hands in the paws or whatever. But that's the Pope of the Eastern Orthodox Church. And some of you are like, well, Mr. Terry, what's the difference between the Eastern Orthodox Church and then the Roman Catholics? So well, check this out. So the church split, right? It had a schism, all right? So schism. Sorry, I just love that word. After Justinian, due to differences in worship across the empire. Because these two different sects of people began to pop up. They began to lead to your Roman Catholics, right, who believed in this thing and they were okay with the practice of idolatry, right? Idolatry is believing that it is acceptable to have statues or monuments to saints within your church, right? Well, the other side, now the Eastern Orthodox Church, was like, you should get rid of those. And that led to a bunch of iconoclasms and stuff like that, where there was some fighting between the two of them. But it's known as a Great Schism because now we have in our Russia, Eastern Europe area, Eastern Orthodox Christians, and now in our Western area, we have the Roman Catholics. And following the Great Schism, after Justinian, because they had reclaimed Italy, the Roman Catholic Church moves its capital back to Rome. All right, so the Roman Catholic Church moved to the Rome, whereas the Eastern Orthodox stays in the Byzantine, right? So that's a big thing. You got to know that, okay? So very, very, very important. That's your Great Schism right there, right? See, schism. So, but the Great Schism was a very, very important. I just dropped my phone. Very important era, and then they're going to move that all back, right? So, but eventually the Byzantine is going to fall, right? So, following the Crusades, the Byzantine was left very, very weak following about 1090 AD. And a lot of different wars are going to leave the Byzantine very small and weak because they just couldn't hold up. And let's be honest with ourselves. Is everybody taking over the Byzantine because it's one of the vestiges of Christianity? Not really. They're taking over the Byzantine due to the fact that because of that Holy Land, lots of people are making pilgrimages and stuff like that. But mainly it's that trade hub aspect, right? It's a lot of money to be made in the Byzantine. So, Constantinople is unfortunately going to be conquered by the Ottoman Turks in 1453, which is the end of the Middle Ages, right? But we're not even done. We're not even scratched the surface of the Middle Ages yet because we got to talk about why Europe looks the way that it does now, right? So, many famous Christian sites, churches still remain there, and many people still make pilgrimages to the former Constantinople, now Istanbul, every year. So, but that's it. That's the Byzantine in a nutshell, right? So, make sure you get all that stuff down. I know it was a little bit longer, but you'll be okay. It's one of the things I like to talk about. So, but I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good evening.